network for female founders and investors, and the goal is to make sure that more women raise capital, scale their ventures, and go global. But today what we're talking about is a point I also raised earlier. In the next 10 years, about 50% of global wealth will go to women and about $30 trillion will be transferred. Now you might ask me, what are the implications of a number like this? Well, the implications are huge. This means that women will have the financial power to invest in asset classes that they haven't been able to. Women will have the power to be in rooms and make decisions in places like Davos. Female founders will have more capital to be invested in, which is their number one problem. And of course, we'll have a lot more female fund managers. So today, I have an amazing panel out here who's going to be dwelling into these topics. So without further ado, I do want to make sure that they also get time to speak. So I'm just going to do a little bit of a pass the mic around and let them introduce themselves. But before that, Avneet, if we can have one of our esteemed panelists here, Ms. Archana Jahangirdar, who's the managing partner and founder of Rukum Capital. I'd invite you to introduce her.
All right, guys, it's post-lunch. How are you guys doing? All good at the back? Super. I request you just for the next 30 minutes, firstly to pay attention here. Everyone who's here, I'm sure the WIN team may find a way to connect you guys, but what we're talking about is going to have direct relevance to whatever you do, because you're here, that means it's connected. So I request for your attention and due respect to our panelists who are here with us today. All right, so I'm Avneet Kohli. I'm the co-founder of Encubay. We are a diversity and leadership-driven network that is trying to make a shift when it comes to women's entrepreneurship and investing. Both of us have managed to bring this fantastic panel together, and I want to take some time to introduce one of our headline speakers, which is Ms. Archana Jahangirdar.
Hi, everyone. She's come all the way from India just for this, so please give it up for her. Singapore, yeah, why Singapore?
Archana is one of the most transformative leaders in India's startup and entrepreneurial scene. Having done multiple things, she is one of the only general partners in the world who is running her own fund, which is called Rukum Capital, of which she is the founder and managing director. She, along with all the work that she does across investing in startups, has been host to the Slushed festival. I'm sure you guys have heard of Slushed. It's a startup festival in New Delhi, in India. She is one of the top 20 torchbearers and women in venture capital. And she's here with us to share her insights on what we're talking about, which is the great financial shift, which my partner in Love, Life and Business, Diksha, spoke about, which is the amount of wealth that's going to be transferred in the hands of women in the next 5 years is going to be close to $30 trillion. And the question is, what next, right? What do they do with that wealth? Those are some of the insights we're going to be probing today. And thank you once again. I'll let Diksha do the rest.
So, Archana, I want to start with you and then we move on to all you lovely people. As someone who's one of the few women GPs managing such a large fund, how do you think this wealth transfer is going to change the trajectory of wealth? How is diversity going to really add to leadership in the next decade?
So the most important, of course, is in investment. It's well known that everyone invests in people that look and speak like them or are from the same background. So that itself is a big barrier when it comes to gender. So the reason such few women founders get invested is there aren't too many women GPs to begin with. So coming to what will it lead to, I think number one is, I think there was a time somewhere in the year dot where women were considered bad drivers. I mean, that's, as ridiculous as that, right? You don't need special skills or you don't need some special gene to be a good driver. And I think the same is true for investing. I think there was some talk earlier about education, but really it should be intuitive almost. Investment is not rocket science, and even rocket science is done by human beings. So why should investment or doubling or tripling wealth should be considered such a hard job to do? It's actually not. the investment bros would want us to believe that it's really tough. It isn't. It's a lot of common sense, it's a little bit of intuition, and it's a little bit of experience, which you can teach yourself. I mean, it's not something that you need to go to MBA school for. So I think the most important thing will be that it'll hopefully make a level playing field for women. I think that'll be the most important part.
Thank you for that. I want to come to Aditi Balbir. Again, she's also just come down from India. She is the co-founder and CEO of Eco Ratings, which is a sustainability tech startup, helping companies understand what their sustainability numbers are. Aditi, I've known you for a while. This is your second venture. You had an exit in your first venture, which is rare for a lot of founders, irrespective of them being male or female. So how did that exit really inspire and give you the ability to start your second venture?
Yeah, thanks, Teacher, and it's great to be here. I think when women get rich, I think they're rich right. And that is something that I want to talk about at the World Economic Forum. I think when we rich right, that means that we first take care of our families, we take care of ourselves, but we also take care of everything else. We have causes that we support. We're very high on sustainability. We understand climate issues. And I think we're very fearless. Once you have an exit, I think the fear is gone. You build what you want to do. You go after that crazy, crazy project. And frankly, everyone in India, including the investors, I must say, tell us that our goals are absolutely crazy. But we're a small startup coming out of India, building for the world. And let me tell you, the fear is gone, because if no one funds us, we will fund ourselves.
Love it. Amazing. And on that note, I want to go to you, Jennifer. Jennifer is the founding partner of Invisible Wealth. She's worked on Wall Street with a lot of high net worth individuals, and she realized that people want to invest more than just getting the dollar value back, and that's what you do. So talk to me about your experience of how wealth is perceived and the change that wealth can bring about is going to be looked at in the next decade, and where do women fit into this entire equation?
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here with everyone. So, as mentioned, I've been in private banking, private wealth management for over a decade, and I saw over thousands of client conversations that there's a real shift going on, a real meaningful shift as it relates to how we think and conceptualize what wealth is. And we are revisiting and redefining what wealth is, taking a more holistic interpretation of the word. And what's fascinating, we have this great wealth transfer underway. We also have this reconceptualization of wealth creation. And I think that this next generation, both in terms of individuals and ideals, are interested in creating value predicated on values. Yeah? So we have kind of the values, the qualitative, which is now starting to drive the quantitative, rather than the opposite, the quantitative driving the qualitative. And that is a really meaningful shift as it relates to honoring the other side of the proverbial coin and taking a more holistic interpretation. And I think women are kind of intuitively wired this way, if you will, and they might lead with qualitative. But either way, you're taking into consideration both sides of the coin. So you have this shift going on in terms of the mentality changing. And one thing I also like to think about and say is that you can't shift money without shifting mindset first.
Yeah.
Right? You have to shift your mindset, and those are the investors before the capital will follow. So I think that those are some thematics that I've seen over the course of meeting with people who are wanting to deploy capital, the next generation, thinking about wealth fundamentally different than their parents. And you have all these really cool dimensions going on that unlocks tons of opportunity for everyone in this room.
And you think the mindset is changing?
Yes.
Amazing. Again, I want to bring about Giri here. First of all, he's the only man on the panel, so Giri, thank you for being here. And I do want to put this out, I don't think diversity is only about women, it's about men and women coming together. So Giri, as an investor at Climber Capital, apart from that, you also manage multiple divisions of your family business in agriculture, real estate, different businesses. The dynamics are changing in India. There are so many startups. In fact, I was hearing a panel at Invest India, and the number said every day 80 startups are registered in India, which is huge. So talk to me about really startups as an asset class, and for you as an investor into startups as well as LP into funds, are you more keen to invest in female fund managers and founders?
Thanks for inviting me, Diksha. I think I'm pleasantly surprised with what the data has been suggesting over the last 18-24 months. And in fact, even if you look at the female participation in Davos this year, it has increased by 13% from the way where we were last year also, right? So I think not just from a perspective of entrepreneurship, but even from a perspective of rising over the ranks in existing organizations. This can include even working in large corporates. I think that number has significantly gone up, and for all the right reasons. I feel we strongly support diversity, but we also have a very gender unbiased approach in terms of our evaluation process. Meaning to say, our evaluation process doesn't really include any thoughts on bias or prejudices in terms of what a certain gender can do and a certain gender cannot.
Sure.
So I think from that perspective, it helps us build on any opportunity, it helps us build a perspective very fundamentally. So I think, and a lot has been discussed in the past. I think this is not a fresh topic. This has been discussed over a decade now. A lot has been gone into policies, a lot has been gone into the government work, and there are small organizations which are supporting this as well. But a very little bit of that has come into practice. And the way this can come into, and I am a sole believer that practice over policy, right? And I feel that if daily practices are not done in terms of like maybe just participating, like someone was saying in the last panel, like just participating in the stock market, or just Archana was mentioning about how a certain bias of driving culture has changed. So I think if practice is not done in terms of to change the mentality that is there at the moment, I think it will be very difficult for policy to change any macro behavior.
So you're saying practice what you preach, and you said you don't make differentiation. So if women reach out to you, you will fund them and give them that opportunity. Let's take note of that. Amazing. Irina, I want to move over to you quickly. This is Irina Biss. She's actually organized a lot of events at VEF. Italian Nights is what I've heard. I haven't been to one. Has it already?
It was yesterday, yeah. It became an annual event. Yeah.
Oh my God. Maybe you want to do one tonight as well.
Next year.
Yeah. But Irina, you've done some fabulous work, especially in Ukraine, in terms of building communities for women that support each other in times that are very, very tense. How do you think the entire financial shift is going to give more sort of independence to women in those communities to kind of, build their own lives ahead in turmoil times?
Absolutely. So first of all, thank you for the organizers. I know what courage it takes to organize an event during Davos. It's crazy, really. Yeah. So thank you very much. And I absolutely agree with my previous speaker about mindset. First of all, you need to start from the mindset, because we can talk about everything, investment, finance, etc. But if a person is not ready, so what is sent? And the mindset, how we can start to work on it. First of all, schools, education. So, we learn everything, chemistry, physics. Until now, I'm still waiting where I can use this chemistry. But we never talk, we never talk about like how to invest, how to deal with money. Even to me, it took so many years, how to learn to save money. I mean, honestly, I spent so much on some things that I actually don't need. Why? Because we see all this marketing, consumption, etc. And so we get even addicted in this era, So how to work on this? You start from your self-esteem. How do you start from your self-esteem? You start from working on yourself, on your inner peace, on your mindset. And this starts from the school, from parents, from the environment, right? So for me, I think the most important is your mindset, your mental health, so that a woman could understand that any woman, doesn't matter the background. I'm coming from a very middle-class Russian family, and Russian middle-class family, trust me, is much less than American or European middle-class family. So every woman should understand that we can achieve anything we want. The important thing is to find what we want, who we are, and then start from this. Get education, learn even if we don't know something, we can learn anything. We live in the easiest times of learning. I mean, everything is even for free. I mean, open YouTube, open Google, ChatGPT, whatever. You can find anything, but start from yourself. I think the key is start from yourself, from your inner peace. No matter how far the technology goes, investments, etc. If we don't have our inner peace, if we are not ready, nothing is possible. So start from your inner peace, working on your self-esteem, and believe that you are worth everything.
That's why we're here at Davos. I also want to, show some light on something. I have been an entrepreneur for almost 13 years, and I'm a optimist. I think startups, innovation, and men and women coming together have the power to change the world. But startups cannot do what they do without venture capitalists putting money behind them. And I think I want to turn to Archana for this, right? We spoke about how women need literacy and financial knowledge, but there are a lot of women who know how to invest outside of just real estate or gold, and Archana is one of them. She runs her own consumer VC fund, and I'm sure that the wealth that you have created has been able to impact so many founders that you've invested in. So, can you share with us some examples of startups where the wealth that you've put in has really led to positive outcomes?
Thanks. I think when you invest in a startup, it's always positive. The outcome is always positive because, if you look at how wealth creation was, let's say in a country like India or in any country apart from, let's say, the US, wealth creation was slow for the masses. It was concentrated with few, families where there was generational wealth, and it rarely transferred to even the employees who may have contributed to the growth of those families. What startups have done is empower not just the founders but employees as well. I think ESOPs have created wealth. Your hard work is sort of paid beyond just the salary that you make. And that incentivizes everyone, right? It incentivizes the employee as well as, of course, the founders to build far more fearlessly, because if you don't have a good team, you will not be able to sort of build. So to begin with, whether it's my personal capital or whether it's through the fund, both mostly go into startups because the two are aligned. And I think I'd like to believe that there's been significant change because a lot of the founders that I've funded so far don't come from any sort of background of capital, wealth, or even affluence, I would say. A lot of them come from what we in India call lower middle class, which basically means you just have enough money for the daily essentials, everyday sort of essentials. And that itself is challenging to break out of that socio-economic strata. So, and some founders have been, of course, women, and I think they're already sitting on fair amount of wealth, even from an early stage perspective. So, I would want to focus on one or two to be more specific to your question. But I think anybody who invests in startups, I put it on a much higher pedestal than investing in real estate or even in gold, because you have the ability to change many, many more lives with a single check. So, of the founders, of course, and the employees as well.
And I want to kind of add to that saying. There's a saying that says that if you invest in a woman, if you invest in her education, you will educate her family. And the startup version of that is if you invest in a female fund manager, you're creating a new economy that is extremely innovative. So, Aditi, with that, I want to go to you, right? Your second venture is around sustainability, climate. Do you think with this entire wealth transfer to women, right, these 50% global wealth going to women in the next 10 years, and Smriti ma'am said earlier, maybe even lesser, do you think there's going to be more funding and initiatives towards climate? Because I think women do care about that a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. look at Archana's perspective, right? She didn't talk about the return that she's making, right? She spoke about other things, employment, ESOPs, changing lives. So when we think about climate or when we think about sustainability, there is a lot more to it than just the E aspect, there's an S aspect, there's a G aspect, and I think on all three we do really well. So if we become the consumers, and if we are already the consumers, we will be very particular about the climate aspect of anything that we buy, anything that we consume. We already are becoming like that, right? And as we become like that, more and more money will shift to this sector. It already needs to. We've all cried about it, I think, in COP 28 and then 29, that there's not enough capital, but I think that shift is happening.
Amazing. And Jennifer, you spoke about the mindset shift, right? And a lot of wealthy individuals wanting to invest wealth and see returns beyond just the dollar. So what are some of those things that they deeply care about, right? Where you think the money is going to flow in the next decade, and if you think that women who are wealthy, do they care about different things than men? I just want to get your perspective.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think people are searching for a higher octave interpretation of wealth. What do I mean by that? So that people are searching for money and meaning, right? Profit and purpose. And so there's this bigger, grounder interpretation of what wealth is, what are returns actually. And people are also trying to align with those things that they want to mobilize forward. And so I think it's an invitation, that invites the question, it's an invitation for everyone to say, what am I interested in? Who am I? Who am I as an individual? What do I want to stand behind? And so long as we all are taking on that responsibility and understanding what we want to see in the world, and are able to then get behind that from an investment perspective, because you might want to focus on the environment. You might want to focus on, I don't know, what's your favorite interest? Like, you know what I'm getting at. Mental health, mental wellness, right? And so if we each do our part contributing, that patchwork will then fortify a much stronger future. So I don't think we should be subscribing to certain taglines or such, but really to do the internal work, to either be an entrepreneur and try to solve a problem, and or understand what you want to deploy capital to and why. And if it's values aligned, then you're going to feel much more committed to the cause.
Amazing. Giri, I want to come to you, right, as someone who's been, heading your family office as well. You are part of so many businesses in the family. How do you perceive wealth, and as your role as an investor and the second generation, how are you making sure that you're investing with purpose?
Interesting. So I'm fourth generation.
Oh wow, sorry.
So it's been a business that's been built by my great grandfather. So purpose really defines from a perspective of profits over purpose. So and purpose over profits, right? So and both of these have to go hand in hand. So I think any businessman sitting across the table will first obviously look at IRR, but not at the cost of causing any sort of damage either internally or externally to the environment, right? So one of the things that we've been very, very careful about in all of our businesses is to ensure that whenever there is an ESG guidelines, we are one of the early people to adapt it. And this has not just been the trend that has started over the last few years. This has also been something that we've been practicing over last now, I think, ever since 2006 or 2007 when the ESG policy framework happened. So we've been following since then. So I think the nature of putting the business not all about money will significantly change a lot about how companies will operate going further, right? And obviously this is also to do with generation to generation. The generation before me would not have thought of ESG so much in a way I would think about it, and probably the generation after me would even think about it very differently than the way I would think about it. So I think with every step we are just going in a positive direction where we're starting to care more about just the wealth.
Amazing. Archana, as someone who's part of this financial ecosystem, and sometimes you're probably the only woman raising money from so many men. It is intimidating, but I'm sure you've done it really well. If you had to change something about the financial ecosystem globally, what would that one change be that will really impact all the women here?
I think, people need to truly be gender blind. I think there's a lot of talk about it because it's no longer fashionable to say that, listen, I'm a white man and I'll only support another white man, or a brown man who will support another brown man. But I think, I think like there's greenwashing, I think there's a lot of gender washing, which means that everyone now knows how to say the right things. But it doesn't translate enough, because if it was, I think the numbers would be very, very different. I would not be one of the few solo woman GP in the VC world. It's not rocket science. Why aren't there many more, or at least 50% should have been the number. Similarly, there should have been many more women founders who should have got investment. So I think it's time to move away from slogans and conversations, but to really either enforce or hope that people truly become gender blind.
I love that. Do we have time?
No. They told us 3 sharp. And
we're working on Swiss time. We're on Swiss time.
No, they'll say we are Indian Standard Time.
We
need to do the closing remarks, but it's my request. But you all have been wonderful, Diksha. Thank you so much.
Thank you, my panelists. You've been great. Can we have a big round of applause?
And photograph with everybody.
My only request is look at the numbers. There are enough female founders and fund managers, and every dollar that goes to them is gonna count. Thank you.